Kelvin. Kelvin 5. The Season 1 AFL MVP finally arrives for his episode of the AFL Career Recap. Now, Kelvin 5 has had a good career in the league. Like I said, the aforementioned MVP, the 2 rings, and well, basically being one of the more consistent QBs. But since basically that MVP season, and besides that to Season 5, well, let's just say it just has been pretty much a decline all the way. And, well, those declines can be a bit tricky, but we're going to go ahead and basically talk about it today. So today, we're talking about basically the career of Kelvin 5 right now. Without further ado, here's the rest of the video. Alright, so Kelvin's first season basically started off with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and well, that season you could possibly call it like basically an interesting season to go ahead and work with. And well, things were differently. He had basically a good receiving team. But overall, the final result of that wound up happening to be a very good season. I mean, Kelvin in that first season threw 47 touchdowns against 4 interceptions. Like, I'm gonna straight up. That was literally impressive. And he pretty much went ahead and he led his team to the Super Bowl. And that, of course, was then he had to face Agity Fuse and what was an overall pretty ridiculous game. I mean, the game was just that back and forth. And, well, it was basically kind of focused on in the end, who's going to win. And Calvin had a good team he stacked up this season. I mean, he had wide TJY, Grim, Tonto, Hiked, Gersal, Rocky, and a whole, like, overall, it's pretty much just shows basically how much of a stacked roster he had. And if there's a few other guys we need to go ahead and mention, then, well, he also he also had Mallory Rose for whenever she was when she was available. Either way, Super Bowl one ended up being a test for the 49ers. Like, not 49ers, don't fudge. I mean, I'm talking for Kelvin. He went ahead and, of course, had to face a Vikings team that was stacked in their own way. You had Agi Fuse, J Fish, V Tyler, Nick Honor, AL Youth, and Keymaster. And well, the game basically was pretty much a back and forth game. And honestly, it should be because it just showed basically it was going to be a long day all the way. And of course, this is a game for the ages. And yes, Vitai was playing in that Super Bowl as I did aforementioned before, but he was working with Agi Fuse as a wide receiver. Now, of course, when they explained it, Vikings got the opening kickoff. But overall, the game was basically a game of understatement. And the first possession for the Vikings ended on a fumble. But McKelvin went to work. He does an absolute good pass. And, well, he just showed basically the consistency. And yes, again, and yes, it was pretty much a crazy game. But of course, it was safe to say it ended up going ahead and seeing the Jaguars and Kelvin scoring first. And now be the result of a fair of basically a high scoring game, which which basically saw these teams trying to go ahead and battle it out. Kelvin basically had done his best in this game. It was like basically overall pretty much a race to get the win, get the W, and win it off. And of course, when you don't expect that luck, it basically when that happens. So let me just explain. So it ended up turning out to basically the next drive Calvin will do basically help make his case as an original Super Bowl winning QB. And of course, he went ahead and he tried firing out a play. He went ahead and he ended up throwing it with hardly any time left remaining to YTJY. I mean, who was a good consistent receiver for him with 10 catches for 211 yards and 4 touchdowns to the game up to that point. It was basically an absolute check down strike. Calvin went 17 for 26 at that point, for a touchdown, 397 yards. Against that one interception, but honestly, it was now it just basically came down to the 2 point, which, if you're the Jaguars, means a lot. And that just basically saw Kelvin just easily fired out. But the game could have ended right there, but of course the Vikings had a last chance to get on the kick return. Which went ahead, and let's face it, probably didn't really never happen. So with that, first Super Bowl, Jags beat the Vikings 36-34. There you go. Nice season in the books. The job's done. Now, basically, the next thing you gotta go ahead and answer was pretty much the arrival. Of season 2. In season 2, when I checked, he went ahead and he basically played with the Titans. And when I saw it, well, the Titans actually had a pretty good season. I mean, 10-2. I mean, Kelvin wasn't really active that much, but well, but overall, it was a pretty impressive season for the Titans. And meanwhile, for Kelvin, he did pretty okay. He went 39 for 63, 1,090 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. But ultimately, this next part did come a bit surprising, and of course, with the Titans being at 10-2 team, they went ahead and they battled it out to get to battle in the playoffs. They got the first round bye. Go ahead and they beat the Chiefs 31-14. Next up is going ahead and defeating the Lord Pratt. Now, this might be a fairly simple task to do like now, but this is season 2 we were talking about. So, of course, the Titans team were pretty much were faced off with all or nothing, get this job done. And the result of the game, well, the game was kind of a good plan, but of course, Kelvin went ahead, he came back, they go ahead and helped his team try to advance on to back-to-back Super Bowls. Possibly the same roster as last time, This time, this was a game that went cold-blooded to the wire. And well, the game was pretty much very close. It was kind of defensively, but each team like basically didn't want to have to deal with the other winning. But of course, Calvin tried to go ahead and lead a possible comeback drive, and well, he got very damn close to basically win the game because there's literally at one point Calvin backed up inside his own 15, goes ahead and he throws a dime. And I mean, an absolute dime. Like, it was just very good. It was like, you want to go ahead and just basically see, well, what is this man doing? And a nice pass to Rockburn, and overall, it was basically a chance to go back to back Super Bowls. And, oh, Kyle went ahead, he pretty much had the comeback led. It was just, it was pretty much a game of the game matchup. And to be honest with you, he probably could have had it, but and and despite the late comeback push from Kelvin, however, the Jets went ahead and they fought their way out to outlast this team 32-24. And to make sure to seal the game, they went ahead and they pretty much, well, I'm just going to say, to make a long story short, it was just, he ended up being picked off in his own end zone for the safety. I mean, you hate to see it from Calvin, but he just showed that he tried his best. The next thing you have to do is go on to the next season. And the next season, though, was different. Calvin took a different route, as he went ahead and he didn't play season 3 at all. I mean, I wasn't there back then to figure out why he didn't play season 3. But for me, I personally think, and if my assumption is correct, my guess is that the 49ers had went ahead and basically gave him how'd you explain it? Hmm. This is the 49ers not 49ers, I mean. Ah. Either way, I think pretty much the deciding factor why he pretty much didn't leave that didn't play that season is because he had to go ahead and, because for me, people are very aware of Calvin. Not know. I mean, he's known for AFL with his AFL career, but he's better known in the OFL as probably one of the best QBs in the game right now. And that's just straight up no cap. Or either way, even though Kelvin 5 was absent QB wise that season, well, we're we're I did search up and we're not sure. I'm not really sure basically if Calvin did play wide receiver. So basically, just gonna write that off as disappeared. Man, just disappeared out into the sunset for this one. But despite Calvin not being QB for season 3, he was back at QB in season 4. This time for the Colts, and kind of being serving as the back quarterback for Reese. Yes, Reese was actually pretty much was was pretty much a freaking. He was pretty much working as a freaking backup QB. Don't even ask me why, but he was literally the backup quarterback to Reese. I'm just gonna say it straight up. I mean, it's weird seeing basically of all people, Calvin being the freaking backup QB to Reese. We're not talking about the whole thing, but he did play wide receiver. But once again, he possibly made his time at best at quarterback while it can, because let's just say Reese that season isn't the best QB to work with. I mean, 32 touchdowns was impressive and helped the team get to the playoffs, but 23 interceptions, however, that was might as well just hurt your team. Either way, despite all that stuff, the Colts made the playoffs with a record of 6-4, and they had to play what I presume was what I presume was the rate. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Like basically, they made the playoff run, and when I did check, they went ahead and they took on the freaking Patriots, which in that game, well, pretty much saw him and his appearance. A few guys also basically appearance a very good OFL roster, and of course, Reese playing a bit at wide receiver. Okay, he was wide receiver, but oh my goodness. Yes, it was just that weird. Either way, the Colts would actually have a good playoff run, would make a pretty okay playoff run. I mean, somewhat decent, somewhat even. They beat the Patriots 54-14 in the wild card round. National Divisional round, play the Raiders, lose and sadly 24 to freaking 20. Like, poor dudes. Like, damn. But either way, either way, season 5 now comes up, and Kelvin 5 goes ahead. He comes back to QB. And of course, him pretty much playing QB. Well, I think it was, in a way, it was just pretty much safe to say the season went pretty decent for him. And when you look at the season 5 stats, he went 58 for 80, 1,426 yards, 19 touchdowns against 5 interceptions for the Jaguars. They go ahead and they make a playoff push, make it to the Super Bowl. But now you have to go ahead and you take on, this time, a new opponent. Well, a familiar opponent, but he's at QB now. And that, of course, is V. Tyler. Tyler was basically the MVP of the season. And basically the team pretty much had a lot to go ahead and deal with, but in the way, the Jaguars ended up winning the game pretty good, making a pretty much a solid statement, beating the Panthers 46-32. A game that was pretty much a fight to the wire. These teams brewed it to the wire, and I think, and that, of course, you got to give some respect for that, but the second Super Bowl win would just be the last Super Bowl win he'd have for a general while. Because, well, now we advance on to season 6, and this time, I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and admit it, he wasn't really playing QB that much that season, but I don't think he was. Okay, he actually did QB the season, but he was QBing for a Vikings team pretty much for 2 games. Played in week 6, and then he went ahead and pretty much had also played in week 3. Either way, that Vikings team, which was juggling with quarterbacks then, has to juggle to Politico, Trapper, Kelvin. Overall, they juggled through a lot of QBs, but either way, next up, pretty much either way, when you just look at the standings from the season, the Vikings would end up 3-7 and missing out on the playoffs. I mean, we just juggled 3 different quarterbacks and it's not making any progress. Nothing really goes, just basically bound to happen. No, not 3. They didn't go 3-7. They went 3-8. Okay, yeah, they're down bad. I'm just gonna say they're straight up down bad. Well, the next season, however, they didn't really see Calvin pretty much playing that much the next season, as he pretty much, I mean, he already basically had 2 rings, so of course, there's hardly any interest of going ahead and basically playing in AFL anymore, because you've gotten whatever you got done. But either way, he went ahead and he actually was pretty much had came in to go ahead and play a game for the Panthers, and that team had a good slot of QB issues. I mean, their main QB was had had been struggling. So now basically it was up to Kelvin to push the Panthers to a late game playoff surge. And of course, the Panthers went in and did that. Towards the end of the season, they finished 5-5. Had to play the Cardinals in the wild card round, and of course, Calvin was called upon to go ahead and QB that game. And the game actually was just pretty much a game that went. I was just back and forth, but in the end, the the Cardinals ended up going ahead and outlasting Calvin's Panthers 24-22. So now let's go to pretty much another run, and of course, moving on to yet another season. And that, of course, go to head and see season 8. And that, of course, was a very weird year of for Kelvin 5. I mean, basically, he got called upon by Tonto to go ahead and help play wide receiver, but in a late game push, he went ahead and he switched to QB. I mean, despite basically the fact that pretty much Calvin did play QB, he performed pretty good that season as a wide receiver with 17 catches, 436 yards, and a very surprising 8 touchdowns. I mean, yards and touchdowns were yards were basically second on the team, and the touchdowns were tied for first on the team as basically the leader in that category just so happened to be Mallory Rose. And of course, the Titans did make a good surge. They went ahead and they went off with an impressive 7-3 record. And making it into the wild card to face the Cleveland Browns. At this point, Calvin was basically starting up that game. I mean, also for the heads up, this is a OFL team, so I think it was OFL based team. So of course, a few things that are noticed differently. So okay, Calvin, yes, he did QB the season a little bit, as he threw 6 touchdowns against 4 interceptions on 510 passing yards. Ventrix, who some of you all followers that are watching should know him well. He went ahead and he somewhat QB the game. Going 8 for 15 for 251 1 touchdowns against 2 picks. To go have a season total of 2 touchdowns against 2 picks. Either way, Titans wide collar round. You of course play the freaking Browns. And when Kelvin was QB, people were noticing that Kelvin's AFL form was a bit of a shell of its former self. And with that weird play from Kelvin, it might end up going and proving them costly, in my opinion, as they went ahead and they fell to the Browns 28-24. And now, with that pot, everyone thought that was basically the end run, like basically end the run. Like that was all you basically could really do. But yeah, despite pretty much that, you go ahead and you pretty much talk about another season, about what what he had to do. I mean, to be honest, so Kelvin 5 once again came back for season 10. This time, young Raleigh went ahead and he was basically QB. And he called Kelvin like, hey, QB season, go ahead and go help me out. And well, the Saints went ahead and they had a good team that season. I mean, to a point. Before in their first half OFL off type of thing, they had Rocky, they had Gersal, they had Kodak. And what was an overall somewhat balanced, decent, and just proficient offensive stuff. And yes, Mallory did play that part of the season to that point. But Kelvin, well, he only caught one pass, but it was a 21-yard touchdown. So at least he had that going for him. But then later on, and basically when that OFL little thing went ahead, it pretty much died out because of inactivity. It just turns out that Hunter CLX goes ahead and he calls up, and he's like, and he basically signed the rest of that he could of this OFL, of pretty much the OFL Saints roster, of the OFL base Saints roster. And Kelvin would wind up coming back to QB for the Ravens for one game, and he did pretty proficient despite. Like I said, he did pretty impressive in his first AFL game since season 8. 22 for 37, 424 passing yards, and 5 touchdowns. Yes, the 3 interceptions were a bit painful, but at least he went ahead and he pretty much persisted through and basically just showed that he basically can get the job done. Ultimately, the Ravens wouldn't have much of a good season, though. Yes, they went ahead and they finished off the rest of the season with a record of 2-8. And well, there you have it. Basically the career recap of Kelvin 5 in this one video. And I think it's safe to say that after doing this recap, we can just basically argue that Kelvin was one of the best QBs to play when he was available. It's just now, no one knows if he is going to come back, if he's going to come back for another full season. But he may not. Well, that'll depend, and we shall see. Either way, thank you guys so much for going ahead and watching this video. So first of all, if you enjoy this career recap, please sure to smash that like button. And also, if you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe and enable those notifications so you won't miss that video from me. And, well, be sure to check out my main channel, if you guys can. Either way, until next time, this is Brown DC, Jared Poole. On behalf of the Browns Comparisons Podcast, we'll see you all next time. Saddle up, saddle out. Peace out.